Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Sports Exchange. My name is Scott Morganroth, the Motor City Madmouth, and I am very happy to be joined by Wayne Cook, who is a sideline reporter for UCLA football and also works with the College Sports Now podcast. And Wayne and I had the opportunity to meet in January at the Southern California Sports Broadcasters Luncheon. And Wayne, it's great to talk to you here on the broadcast.
Scott, it is my pleasure. It was great to meet you in Southern California, and I'm glad to be a guest on your show.
Well, I'm looking forward to coming back to LA for round two come next January, and then when you go to an event for the first time, you meet new people, and then you build friendships. You always like to build on those as you continue to go back on a yearly basis. So, you were very hospitable to me. It's like to go into a place where you don't know anybody, and then you made me feel welcome from the beginning, as a lot of people did, don't get me wrong. But it was really neat being out there at that event.
There were some big names out there, too. It's funny because I don't always get a chance to get out to that. It was my broadcasting partner, Matt Stevens, was going into the Hall of Fame. My old broadcasting partner, who's now retired, who's the president of the organization, Chris Roberts. And, there's just so many good people in this business, Scott, as you know. And they usually want to help and they want to talk to people. So I'm glad you feel that way about me. But it was easy to talk to you, and just like everybody else that was there. There's some big names in that room that day, and it's always fun for me to get a chance to hang out with those guys as well.
Well, it was interesting. I guess Chris has told me that I'm the first guy from the East Coast to ever join that group, and I take a lot of pride in it. East meets West, and it was really cool since I have a fondness for that area, let alone UCLA, that's for sure. So,
well, Scott, it's fun because over the years, and I know we all have our legendary sportscasters in our area, but if you go to that event, and not everybody's always there, and some of our greats like Vin Scully, who we saw doing some stuff on video, but I've been there when he was there before. Bob Miller was there. He's great. Kings announcer is now retired. We had Ralph Lawler, who was an amazing announcer for the Clippers, that was there. And some of these guys are retired, but these are people that taught us the game as we were growing up, and some of the best in the business. And so it's cool to be able to be a part of that and have these legends pass on some great traditions to kind of the new wave of broadcasters.
Well, yeah, it's always been a dream to meet Vin Scully, and me being from the Detroit area, Ernie Harwell to me was like an uncle to me. So, and we were related in a lot of ways, and he's a guy I looked on. But Vin Scully is, I still think, the greatest broadcaster of all time. So I wish I would have met Vinny, but I thought I had at least a puncher's chance if I showed up to do it. But wasn't meant to be that night, and who knows it'll be next year, God willing. So let's give everybody an overview about what your career is like at UCLA, and then we're going to go ahead and I'll give you a rapid fire that we're going to continue to talk about lots of different things. First of all, to all our listeners out there, Wayne was the starting quarterback at UCLA from 1993 and 94, and your tenure at that university in Westwood was from 91 to 94. I know you take a lot of pride in this one, that you beat USC twice as a starting quarterback in 1993 season. With a win over USC that led to the 1994 Rose Bowl against Wisconsin. And Candy here is in the house, and you lost to her Badgers 21-16. Can't forget the fact that Ron Dane was a running back for them, and Barry Alvarez against Terry Donahue. Wisconsin was 9-1-1 going into the contest. Terry Donahue, your coach, was 8-3. But your career numbers stand out with me. 4,723 yards, an impressive TD to interception ratio of 34 TDs against 11 interceptions. A lot to talk about, but more importantly, you never played professionally. With all that information out there for folks to digest, okay, why don't you go ahead and put it all together and educate everybody out there what you did.
Well, I mean, if people are interested, the funny thing about me is I would like to think of my career as, I had to overcome a lot. I played on some rough high school football teams, and I had a lot of injuries along the way. which is, I played 3 sports. I was a 3-sport athlete: football, basketball, and baseball. And I had my first surgery after my junior football season. I played on a team that was 1-8-1, and I got sacked about 10,000 times. And I had hurt my left shoulder, so I got that surgery in between football and basketball season. Still managed to have a good basketball season my junior year. My senior year in football, I broke my thumb, so I missed 3 games. We ended up 3-6-1. And then I played in a high school all-star game after I had already received a scholarship from UCLA, which, by the way, it wasn't easy with all those injuries. I'd gone to some camps, and Terry Donahue had seen me play a game in person because he was watching his daughter cheerlead. And so there were some things that had to happen. I truly believe that I was good enough, a 6'4" multi-athlete with a big arm. But when you're not winning, it's tough sometimes to get noticed. Anyway, long story short, I blew my knee on a high school all-star game too. So as you can see, I had already gone through a lot. I tore my ACL, and I ended up gray shirting. Anyway, played behind Tommy Maddox my first couple of years at UCLA, and then I finally earned the starting job my sophomore year. My sophomore year, I was announced the starter after Tommy Maddox went pro. And in my very first game against Cal State Fullerton, I believe I was like 8 for 11, 150 yards, a touchdown pass. It was off to a great start. I blew the same knee out again.
Wow.
So at this point, Scott, I'm sitting there going, is this even worth it? And luckily, I actually didn't think that, because my dad, who played football at the University of Arizona in the 1960s, raised me to be tough. He wanted me to be like a linebacker no matter what I played, and so I didn't really think about anything other than getting better. But that injury was bad. That was an ACL, MCL, total reconstruction of the knee, the kind of injury in the early 90s that you didn't always recover from. And I worked my butt off, and I came back, and I kind of had to win the starting job again my junior year, and I did. That was the year that was pretty magical. It didn't start off great. We lost our first 2 games by 3 points total. We lost to Cal by 2. I threw an interception at the end of that game, one of my 3 that year. I didn't throw very many. And then the next game we played Nebraska. And if you remember the early 90s, Nebraska had a guy named Tommy Frazier and some great players, maybe one of the best runs in college football history. Now, they lost the national championship that year to Florida State, but I think they won the next 2. So we lost to them by 1 in the Rose Bowl. Then we went on to win 8 of our last 9 and beat USC to play in the Rose Bowl. And the one loss we had, I didn't play in that one either, because I bruised my kidney against Washington State, and basically we had internal bleeding. So there was a lot that I had to go through. And it's funny because you mentioned the SC game my junior year that we won for the championship to go to the Rose Bowl.
Right.
I almost didn't get to play in it.
Really?
I mean, I had the internal bleeding, and they were actually putting my urinalysis results in the newspaper every day. So I came back and played in that game. I'm not going to lie. I was weak. I was limited. I was run down. This was a year after knee surgery. And so it was one of those games that I'm so proud that I even got through it. And so, that was magical. And then my senior year was not as good as I had wanted. We had a lot of injuries and lost more games than we should have. But I was pretty beat up. So when I did try to make, you pointed out I didn't play in the NFL. I got signed as a free agent by the 49ers. Didn't end up making that team, which was pretty amazing just to be there, because that was the year after they won the Super Bowl with Steve Young and Jerry Rice and all those great players. So it was fun to be a part of that. And then I went to the Arizona Cardinals and got to wear a uniform twice in preseason games, but couldn't make it. But my injuries had caught up to me, Scott. I was pretty beat up. I was one of those guys that in camp I was taking painkillers like crazy just to get through practices. And so it wasn't meant to be, but you know what? I wouldn't change any of it, because all of that adversity and everything else you go through in sports teaches you lessons that you cannot learn. And there's other places you can learn it. But trust me, all of that has made my adult life a lot better, in my opinion.
So, Wayne, are there any particular highlights at UCLA that stand out? And talking about your overall time there.
Oh my gosh, yeah, there's so many. I mean, like I talked about my junior year. What was funny is I was coached by what I believe is one of the greatest, offensive coordinators in the history of all time. And if you want to look up what he did in his career, his name's Homer Smith. And he was at Alabama, he was at Arizona, he was at UCLA, and everywhere he went, he won. I mean, his offensive mind was as good as any, and he wasn't one of those guys that had one system. He evolved over his career because he knew that football evolved, and so I truly believe I was taught by a great coach. We were in a meeting after the Nebraska loss, and we were 0-2, and I remember sitting there, and the coach got up in front of the whole team, and he said, "Man, the quarterback play is not good enough." I mean, I could have felt like I was 3 inches tall. I just, if it was offensive line, I mean, there's a bunch of guys going, well, he's not talking about me, he's talking about that guy. But when you talk about the quarterback, there's only one guy playing, and so I felt pretty cruddy. I didn't think I was playing that bad, but I learned something that day. I felt like I was playing not to lose instead of playing to win. Well, we went on a run after that, luckily, which probably saved my career. I think I threw 11 touchdown passes in the next 3 games. We went to San Diego State. I had 3 touchdown passes, and we killed them. We ended up scoring like 68 points against a ranked BYU team. And I threw 4 touchdown passes in that game. And I want to say I did that in the first half. And then we played Washington. And that game was memorable. That was a Napoleon Kaufman-led Washington team that had scored 15 points on us early. Big game at the Rose Bowl, great crowd. And Napoleon Kaufman was doing push-ups in the end zone after his touchdowns. I mean, it was just an ugly start. We scored 31 straight against him and came back, and I had 4 touchdown passes in that game, all to a guy by the name of J.J. Stokes. And we were off. At that point, we were a really, really good team. And if you're a football aficionado, I don't know if you remember Desert Swarm with Teddy Bruschi.
Of course I do. I remember J.J. Stokes for that matter.
Of course. And so Desert Swarm, we were so fixated on that team. Our coach was so smart. Terry Donahue and Homer Smith, we knew that what they called was a flex defense, and that Desert Swarm, but led by Bruschi and other great players, one of the best defenses at that time in the history of college football. Maybe it was the best. And they were awesome. Well, we had practiced against what they did because it was a little bit different all through the season. We started working on it in camp, which was weird. We started working on a team we didn't play till like our 5th or 6th game. Anyway, by the time we played them, they were 6th ranked team in the nation. They were giving up about 2 inches of carry, I think, on the ground. And they came on ESPN on a Thursday night to the Rose Bowl, and we beat them 31-19 or something. I forget what they had, but we scored 31 on a great. And I honestly, if you looked at my stats, I think I completed 50% of my passes, and that's not very good. But I did not throw an interception, and I did not get sacked very much, which were negative plays. And so I'm as proud of that one as any. And then, the game, the SC game that we talked about earlier.
Right.
I was hobbled. That game gets played on Classic Sports every once in a while. And if you watch it closely, there's plays where I'm rolling out. And this was after my bruised kidney. This was a year removed from major knee surgery. There are plays where I'm trying to move out of the pocket and my leg will buckle. You'll just see it like there's no strength in it.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt like at the end of that game, and I hope I'm not boring you, Scott, but at the end of that game,
no way. You couldn't bore me if you tried.
At the end of that game, what I remember and what was so cool about it is players are running around. I remember we won. It was a very close game. We had an interception at the end of the game in the end zone to win it. I mean, they were going down to score, and they threw an interception, and our players, we had to take a knee a couple times to run out the clock, but our players were running around with roses in their mouth, and they were jumping up and down. This was at the Coliseum too, which made it even better.
Right.
And I remember going into the locker room at the end of that game, and I remember I couldn't even stand up. I was so tired. I was so worn out. And this is the only game that I've ever felt like that at the end of the game. Right. There was a table that had drinks on it, and one of those like folding tables. And I remember I just laid down on it. And I just laid there, and I was like, my head was tilted sideways, and I watched my teammates jump up and down, scream and yell, sing our fight song. And it was one of the coolest moments I've ever had in sports. And nobody really knows about that stuff, but it's just, I'm just proud that I got through it. And it was just that much fun, and that was like the high of that game was amazing. And then you did mention the Rose Bowl. I won't lie, that was the low of my career. To get to play in that game and never have a chance at a redo and to lose 20, I think we lost 21-16.
Yep.
We never lost a game. The most we lost by that year was 6 points. I mean, we were a really, really good team, and it's a shame that most of us believe that we should have won every game we played in, and that's kind of the bummer of college sports.
Right.
But that year was pretty magical. And, my senior year, and again, I know I'm talking too much, but my senior year, this is the sad part. We won our first two games. We beat Tennessee in Peyton Manning's very first college game ever. Peyton Manning had to come in because of an injury, and it's funny. Peyton Manning and Helton, the baseball player,
Todd Helton,
played in that game. Both played in that game for Tennessee. We won our first two games. We were ranked real high, and then we lost 6 in a row. J.J. Stokes got hurt. Everybody got hurt. 6-game losing streaks for quarterbacks are hard to deal with. I got booed. I got yelled at. But we got healthy, and I'm going to end with this because this is important to me because nobody cares about that season because we ended up 5-6.
Right.
But we won our last 3 games. We beat Stanford. We beat Arizona State and had the #1 offensive day in the history of our school. We had like 700 and some yards. And then we beat SC. To end the season, and they had a chance to go to the Rose Bowl still, and so I'm very proud of that because we didn't quit, we didn't give up, we didn't listen to the noise, and we kept fighting, and that was it, And then my last game in college was an All-Star game. I played in the Blue-Gray All-Star game. I don't know if you remember that, but they used to have it. It used to be played on Christmas Day. I
remember.
And we won that game too. So that was kind of it for me. That was the last football game I played at, which is kind of sad thinking back on it.
Well, you're not talking too much. You're a quarterback turned broadcaster. You're one of them. It's not like I met you at a quarterback convention for Pete's sake. I met you at a broadcaster's. Come on. I call Chris Roberts my broadcast brother. I might just very well tag you with broadcast brother number 2. So that's okay. We're good. So I'll go on to a bunch of other things. I have a lot I want to talk about. And thankfully we'll be able to get to every last point and then some. So first of all, did you take a lot of pride in beating USC twice?
So here's the absolutely first. I was a part of the first graduating class to never lose to USC. We had beat them 4 years in a row, and then as soon as I was done, Cade McNown went ahead and won 4 in a row. So I was the first quarterback to beat him twice in a row, and then he went ahead and wipe that out right afterwards. But I will say this. I did not play, and people that know West Coast football know there was the Hackett years at USC when Paul Hackett was the coach.
Right.
The 2 teams I played against were both ranked in the top, 15, and they were John Robinson teams. They had guys like Willie McGinnis. They had guys like Keyshawn Johnson. They had guys like Johnny Morton. They had guys like they had some dudes. And so, I'm very, very proud of that. When I see some of the guys that I played against, whether they're on TV, whenever I see Willie McGinnis or whenever I see Keyshawn or whenever I see, Teddy Bruschi or whenever I see, any of these guys, Trev Alberts for when he played for Nebraska. I mean, it's cool that you play against some of the best players and you were right out there battling with all those guys and in some cases beating them. So absolutely, I take pride in it.
Well, and there's no discounting the fact that USC has a heck of a football tradition, judging by the Heisman Trophy winners and national championships. And with no disrespect, it almost seems like, at least in football, that UCLA is a little brother, so to speak, success-wise compared to USC. So that leads me to my next question, okay? What's it like playing at a university known for its basketball tradition?
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and disagree with you the first time. I will tell people this as long as they'll listen to me.
Sure.
You go back and look at how good the UCLA teams were in the 80s.
Okay.
And then in the 90s, we beat them, I believe, 8 out of 10 years. So in those 2 decades under Terry Donahue, we were right there. Now the 2000s were obviously the Pete Carroll years, and now granted, remember they got busted for cheating during that era, but it was not good. But even if you go just back to the 1980s, look at the win-loss record against our 2 schools.
Right.
It's a lot closer. It's a lot closer than you would think. It's pretty darn close to even. So I think that because UCLA basketball was so dominant for so long, and I'm not going to lie, I mean, when I was a senior, that was the last national championship for UCLA was the Ed O'Bannon team when I was a senior.
Right.
So that was pretty cool. But I give Terry Donahue a lot of credit. He won 3 Rose Bowls in 4 years in the 80s, and he went to Rose Bowl with me before he retired. So while SC does have an amazing tradition, and I'm not discounting that, I would probably even give them the edge overall, for whatever. But still, UCLA, the little brother thing, as you can tell, I don't agree with, and I think that UCLA's down right now.
Right.
But I think that school has every bit the opportunity to because SC's not exactly killing it right now either.
Right.
So So I don't know. I'm not trying to be defensive.
Right.
But I think that UCLA has done a lot of good in football. And you look at some of the great players that have gone through UCLA, there's a lot of them.
Well, hey, listen, there's no problem. I have nothing wrong with disagreeing. I guess you have 2 points of view. You've obviously played there, so who am I to say that?
Your point of view, though, hey, K. Scott, your point of view is what I hear every day.
Oh, is that? But
you've heard the talk of USC talking about possibly, going off on their own.
Right.
Whatever. It's not like you're so good right now that you're going to go.
Right.
If you want to. But and then other people also say that the only way the Pac-12 will get any respect is if USC is good, and I don't agree with that either. I think with Oregon and Washington doing what they're doing, and if other schools will step up and be elite, let's look at the way it works right now. If you have a couple of really good teams in your conference,
right.
People like Clemson, as long as they're good, nobody even pays attention to the fact that everybody else in the ACC, was terrible last year. So you just need one of those teams at the top that's dominant, and that's what the Pac-12 is kind of lacking a little bit. But I don't think it has to be SC.
All right, let me point this out. When I talk about a football school with a basketball tradition, I want to make sure I express a little bit of clarity on that, just so you know. Everybody knows full well that the UCLA basketball program, and I had an opportunity to meet Coach John Wooden, and I have his pyramid of success in my office, just so you know that. So I subscribe, and I have that tape somewhere back at home. But I want to preface the fact that, let's not kid ourselves, UCLA's basketball tradition with all those national championships is what I mean by that. Where you're playing football takes a back seat to basketball for the most part based on John Wooden and that tradition. That's not to say that the UCLA football program hasn't put out a lot of good football players. I'm not going there, just so you follow me, okay? But
I follow you.
Right, and I just want to make sure there's clarity. Now, I know that there's that little USC versus USC. Hey, listen, you know what? They used to play that game at the end of the year, and ABC or all these national TV networks used to watch it every year when it meant more back then versus now 200 million college football games on at a time.
Right.
But when I talk about the fact that you're at a basketball school, UCLA is really known as a basketball school, I would think, from at least a national perspective. And John Wooden certainly would be a good testament to backing that philosophy up.
So just this is all about. I'm going to add to that because I don't.
Please do.
I don't disagree. I do not disagree with what you're saying, but this is what's fun.
What's that?
So when I was at UCLA in the early '90s, we had Lisa Fernandez and company leading our softball program. It was amazing. We had a guy by the name of Kobe Jones that was a great soccer player at UCLA. We had baseball players that were as good as they get. We had. I'm telling you, this school. If you look at it even today,
right.
We are so good at so many sports, and I'm so proud of the tradition. The problem is, and you're watching what Mick Cronin's doing with the basketball program.
Right.
I've always believed that you can rebuild a basketball program a lot quicker than you can rebuild a football program.
Right.
I still think Chip Kelly's going to get UCLA to where they're fighting for Rose Bowl berths, on a regular basis. It's been a tough rebuild. It's been hard. It's been difficult because we know this. When you're winning in softball, and you're winning in gymnastics, and you're winning in beach volleyball, and you're winning, pick an Olympic sport. You're winning in a lot of those sports, or at least in that top 10 every single year. People are like, yeah, but how are you in basketball and football? We want those revenue sports to be good. So that's where UCLA's down right now.
Right.
And I think that with the basketball program is in great hands. This has been a great story this year. But I do think the football program is harder to rebuild a football program. I think we're going to get back. And I think we're going to start playing at a much higher level real soon. I think it's going to start this year, but down the next 2 or 3 years, I think we're going to get back in the mix.
Well, let's not kid ourselves. Outside of John Wooden, you've had a lot of great coaches on the basketball side. Then I do want to talk about Chip Kelly in a moment. But Jim Herrick, I believe, led you guys to a national championship. Ben Holland had a nice run there. Steve Alford, and everybody else. I'm just mentioning a few names off the top of my head. So, and again, John Wooden, Larry Brown was there, but those are just some of the guys. But now we'll go back to Chip Kelly. I do agree with you 100% that Chip Kelly will do a good job. I think he has an exciting offense. The only thing Chip Kelly has to do is get the type of personnel that fits his offense, and it takes 3 or 4 years to get those type of athletes in there. And I just hope that the athletic department, I believe, isn't Dan Guerrero still the athletic director?
He is, but he is retiring this year. So the search for a new athletic director is on. And one thing I always try to point out to people when it comes to Chip Kelly is that he is not a system guy. He will adjust his offense to, people keep thinking he's going to do exactly what he did at Oregon. And he hasn't had that personnel. When he inherited Oregon, he inherited a team that had won 10 games with Mike Bellotti the year before, and he was already the offensive coordinator. UCLA was much more of a he had to really rebuild, and there's been so many players that have left the program. And his offense is ahead of the defense. And I think if our defense was playing better, I think the offensive numbers would show a little bit more. But he's really, I think this year we have like 40 more players on the practice field than we did last year at spring practice. So we've had a lot of turnover and a lot of young players, but we're starting to get a little bit older and a little bit better, a little bit more mature. I'm not saying we're there yet, but I think a bowl game is there. I mean, I think after that, I think we'll start seeing a more mature program.
Well, I definitely think that Chip Kelly was an excellent hire. I really do. So it's not a matter of if they're going to do well. It's just a matter of when. So, I know where Westwood is in the Rose Bowl. So, and that's where UCLA plays, is in the Rose Bowl Stadium. How much of a logistical challenge is it for fans without an on-campus stadium to travel over there? I know you guys have been doing it for years, since that is a little bit of a drive on those freeways.
That's a question that comes up, and I'm guilty. I'll read I'll scour Twitter, and I'll scour the message boards, and I'll scour just to see what people are saying. It's funny to me, and I'm not trying to be mean to fans, but I always get a crack up at how fans have such high expectations. But if there's a Friday night game and they have to sit in traffic, they're like, I don't know if I'm going to make it. Why did we schedule this game? I'm like, you expect athletes to be working out 24/7, be great students, never make a mistake, and you can't deal with a little bit of traffic to show up at a game. So I kind of hate that excuse, and I will say this. One of the first games, when I was being recruited at UCLA, and I was being recruited by UCLA and USC, so I had tickets every weekend to either a USC game or a UCLA game. Rodney P was the quarterback at USC, and Troy Aikman was the quarterback at UCLA. I'm telling you, man, that and they won. UCLA was winning a lot of games. They won 20 games in 2 years. Troy was the man, but there was a lot of players on those teams. And I went to a game and this is a Coliseum too. I went to a game in a weekend, 2 weeks in a row, I believe. There was an Oklahoma USC game, and there was a Nebraska UCLA game. Man, those stadiums were packed. They were loaded. The teams were both top 10 teams. I mean, it was so much fun. So it's just my opinion. When you start winning, fans will show up.
Right.
There's always going to be the negatives. I mean, hey, let's be honest. They could build an amazing 55,000 seat stadium on campus and get and have it be something, because I've been to Oregon when it's sold out and it's loud as can be, and I've been to the Rose Bowl when it has the same amount of people, and it looks like there's a lot of empty seats. 50,000, 60,000 people in the Rose Bowl still doesn't quite look as good. You got to get up in that 80, 90 range. I played in a Rose Bowl that had over 100,000 people in that game.
Right.
You know what I mean? That place is rocking when that happens, but you've got to win. In LA, and everywhere, you gotta. If you're winning, people will show up. So, it'd be great if we had a campus on stadium. But you know what? We get to play in the Rose Bowl. I mean, it's an amazing event, and it's really not that big of a deal.
I can't imagine it's that bad of a recruiting tool either.
No.
To be able to tell a kid, hey, by the way, our home stadium happens to be the Rose Bowl. Not the worst thing. And I actually went up there when I was out in LA, for our event, and of course I had been to a Rose Bowl game, when Michigan took on Washington. So, it's pretty neat. So let's go on some other interesting ideas. I love your candor and your candid. So we're gonna have a blast. We haven't even got to the main course yet, but we're getting there pretty good. So tell me, what are your thoughts about the transfer portal? I see a lot of quarterbacks using it these days.
Yeah. Well, to be honest with you, the transfer portal to me is is good sometimes and not so much the other times. I think we live in a world right now, and I see this. I have two boys that a 20-year-old and a 13-year-old, and they both played youth sports. I mean, if the wind blows the wrong way and a team loses a game, or if a coach looks at you funny, kids just go to another team.
Right.
Everybody's chasing championships, and we never hear the stories of guys that transfer and just don't play. Because guess what? If you weren't good enough to play at one place, there's a chance that you're not going to be good enough to play somewhere else.
Right.
But then there's also positive parts of that, where a quarterback, last year's playoff, wasn't it 3 of the 4 quarterbacks were transfers.
Right.
And listen, if you're Jalen Hurts and you're winning that many games and the coaches say you're not good enough, heck yeah, you should transfer. Why should you just rot on the bench when you're that good and can go play somewhere else? So for situations like that, especially as a quarterback, when there's only one, there's only one guy that's going to get to play most of the time. And if you already know the guy in front of you is younger than you are, then I think it's perfect. What bothers me is I see a lot of young players that think they're probably better than they really are when they come out of high school, that are just deciding that, the grass is going to be greener somewhere else. And so I'm kind of torn on it. It scares me a little bit in the direction that, with pay to play and transfers, and I'm worried that the game that we love, Scott, is changing in a way that there's going to be too many unintended consequences.
Right.
I mean, shoot, the playoffs have had unintended consequences.
Right.
I mean, just the idea that the Pac-12 is looked at the way it's looked at, and there's so much national exposure of certain teams over and over and over again. I mean, ESPN recruits for these schools. They don't even have to. I mean, everybody wants to go to Alabama and Ohio State,
right,
and Oklahoma, because they get to see their games all the time. So, to me, there's a lot of changes, and it makes me a little bit nervous, because I love this game so much. And so many, 90-something% of these athletes, this is the last time they're going to play. They're not going to make it in the NFL. The scholarship is a great thing. It'll give them unbelievable opportunities. And I feel like everybody thinks they deserve more money. They deserve more money. These guys are spoiled so much more than we used to be. They get so much more gear. They get to eat training table year-round. I mean, it is amazing the stuff that they get. Their facilities are incredible. And yeah, maybe a few of them are going to end up being multimillionaires. I get that. But most college kids, just giving them a free education is an amazing thing, an amazing experience. And I just think we listen to the few, and the media gets carried away with all this stuff and says they deserve it, they deserve it, they deserve it. I kind of tend to be a little bit old school, and I say, well, you just earn it. Zion played his year in college, and now he's going to be he abided by the rules, and he still made it. Most guys that are going to make millions in sports are still going to make millions in sports once they get to the NFL.
Right. Well, let's talk about the amount of bowl games. I'm old school, just like you. So,
yeah.
Are there too many bowl games? And the reason why I like them is only because it gives these guys another opportunity to be scouted by the NFL. Well, and you want more film in addition to the All-Star games. But, okay, you're in the college game. You cover it. You're a sideline reporter. You have a podcast. Are there too many bowl games? And where does it stop where you're rewarding mediocrity? That, to me, makes a Rubik's Cube look like a very easy puzzle to go ahead and figure out.
Yeah, I don't care, because I think it's, again, we talk about the NFL so much, and I've always felt this way. I felt this way when I was in high school. Even back when I was in high school, I played 3 sports, and I had coaches telling me that, even back in those days, in the late 1980s, hey, you should specialize. So why would I specialize? I'm good at all 3 sports, and I had a chance to play in college in all 3 sports. Now, football was my biggest opportunity. So, that's the one I took, and I had great advice from my dad, who thought that was my best chance to make it. But I wasn't really thinking about it. I just love to play the game. And I've always felt like the kids that love to play the game, like if it's mom and dad pushing you to get scholarships and pushing you to somehow save your family, and if you don't have a love for the game, at some point in time, you're going to burn out. You're going to really, really, really struggle. And you are going to burn out. And so to me, Scott, I apologize. I got a little lost my train of thought. I'm driving and talking, and then a police officer pulled up behind me. I'm not getting pulled over, so don't worry.
Oh, that's good.
I just pulled over to talk. But anyway,
that's all right.
It's one of those things that I just think that if more athletes, and I know, by the way, I am so barking up the wrong tree. I know for a fact that if these athletes just love the game, I'll give you a great example.
Sure.
Joshua Kelly from UCLA. He is a guy that loves to play football. He shows up every day with a smile on his face. He's a guy that basically had to beg to go from UC Davis to UCLA. He went and played in I believe it was a Senior Bowl, and was the leading rusher. He went to the combine and dominated. He's going to end up getting drafted from a guy that nobody wanted. But I'm telling you, he's not that great because everybody's been telling him about the NFL. He's that great because every day he loves to be on a team. He loves to be around his teammates. He loves to work hard. He loves football. And I swear that's the recipe. If you love the game and you just can't wait to play, all that other stuff's gonna take care of itself. If you're talented enough, people will find you. Trust me. There's a lot of people out there that know that if you get the best players, you're gonna win games, and so they will find you. So I just wish more players would stop thinking about the end game and start thinking about what they're doing today.
So, but my question to you, Wayne, is there too much of a saturation of all these bowl games? I guess that's the thing. Because there's a lot of them. I mean, geez, who would have thought when you were going to UCLA, we had the Bahamas Bowl. I've always thought the Bahamas were a great place to go out and relax. And then we have, of course, the Independence Bowl has been there forever, but still. And you can think of every single bowl on the planet. Of course, I haven't seen the Toilet Bowl yet. Just kidding with you. But who knows? Maybe they'll come up with one sometime. But, every single bowl on the planet, where does it stop?
Well,
if it does.
I got distracted a little time in my last day, and I go off on tangents sometimes.
That's all right, no problem. You got the right guy on with you.
I want them. I really do. I like bowl games. I like the extra practices. But I didn't realize this. I believe that when I was playing, there was like less than 20.
Right. Oh, yeah.
Now there's 40 something. I mean, I don't even know what the number is. I'm sure you do. But
well, it's around 40 something. That's okay.
Yeah.
They're double.
It's kind of like, and I didn't even realize. I was like, wow. Now, and I love watching football, but I do agree. I think for the first time probably last year, I kind of started thinking, you know what, this is kind of dumb. We need to make it something that you earn. Not just being 500, but something that you got to be one of those top 30 or 40 teams in the nation to get a chance to do this. So I wouldn't mind them. I don't think we're ever going to go the other direction.
Right.
But I think it is too much. I agree with you. It also is causing a lot of problems when you're going to play so many games where, and again, we're going to talk about that top 10%.
Right.
But when those kids are saying, I don't even want to play in our bowl game because I don't want to hurt myself, I don't want to affect my, I just, that bothers me too because it feels like you're leaving your teammates up. And at the same time, I kind of get it.
Right.
You know what I mean? I do get it, but at the same time, it bothers me because I could never imagine telling my teammates, hey, by the way, I'm not going to play in this game because I'm too valuable. That just seems so not right.
Or you worry about injury too, Wayne. And
well, I told you this. I got injured in the high school all-star game.
Right.
So I think about this too.
Yeah.
Why do so many high school kids that already have scholarships?
Right.
Why are they playing in those high school all-star games just so they can announce where they're going on TV?
Yeah.
I mean, seriously, isn't it the same thing? Because most of those kids nowadays are told when they're in high school that they're NFL guys.
Right.
So I'm surprised that they play in the high school all-star games. Why aren't they just? Why would the school even let them when there's possibility? I mean, I blew my knee out in a high school all-star game when I didn't even get hit. I just planted my back foot and my ACL popped.
Wow.
I mean, it was just like, you know what I mean? Like, I just, if we go down this road where you're always scared of what if, and you're not just playing, again, and I might sound like I'm kind of a grumpy old man, and I'm not that old, but it's like, the idea is that, I was always taught the more you think about getting hurt is when you're going to get hurt. Just get out and play. Right. And if you do get hurt, you'll rehab and get better and get back in there, but I always thought that was kind of a football player mentality.
Well, I got to tell you, since we both can relate to these bowl games, I do remember once upon a time when they had the Astro Bluebonnet Bowl out in Houston. Boy, I was there. Yeah. And I think UCLA, as I remember, played in it against Michigan.
Oh, jeez.
But,
oh, my gosh.
Well, hey, listen, I got a little age on my side, too there, Wayne. Don't worry.
I love it.
I'm telling you, we hit it off well over at the luncheon, and we're just picking up where we left off here, only behind a microphone. Don't worry, I expect to bring you on more than one time, but on different subjects. But yeah, I remember the Astro Bluebonnet Bowl and a lot of the other ones back in the day. It was another bowl, and I follow UCLA sports more than you think, and and you'll understand why in a little bit. So I'm going to go on. Let's go on to a couple of other things here. I know you touched on it earlier, okay? But do you have any regrets of not playing pro football in terms of during the regular season? I know you had some opportunities, kicking the tires, but it just wasn't meant to actually happen for keeps, for pay.
So when I was I got drafted or got drafted. I got called during the last round of the draft by the 49ers. They took J.J. Stokes, my receiver, with the number 10 pick. And they brought me on and kind of told me I was gonna make the practice squad my first year. That was the plan.
Right.
And anyway, NFL, it's always a numbers thing, and there were some injuries and there were some things they had to move around, and so I wasn't even there long enough to really prove or not prove anything. So I didn't last very long there, but I was picked up by the Arizona Cardinals, and it's kind of funny how small the world can be sometimes, because one of the quarterbacks that I had played in the blue-gray game with. I went there and I made some great friends. I was coached by Johnny Majors was one of my coaches.
Okay, I remember him.
He was a legend in Tennessee for a long time. And I had some Ron Perlis who's been around forever, Michigan State coach. One of the Terry Bowden was a coach of the other team, but we got to be around all of these pretty amazing coaches from amazing backgrounds. And one of the other quarterback on the team that I was on, really kind of would strut around the joint, and he was being looked at by a lot of the scouts. If you knew anything about me, my right side of my body after every practice had ice on. I was like, I was like a scene from North Dallas 40. I had ice on my right knee. I had ice on my elbow. I had ice on my shoulder. Sometimes I would just avoid all that, just sit in a tub of ice, and just to get through practice. Even all the injuries I had, probably the worst thing I used to get pitcher's elbow. I would have been a great candidate for Tommy John surgery if they were doing it more. But so I go to that week, and the scouts are everywhere, and they're roaming around, and I hurt my first day. I felt great. And then I got a sore arm, which was very common for me. And I had to manage that the rest of the week just to be ready for the game. And so I didn't have a great week of practice. But as an athlete, I'll tell you this. I know when I'm going up against people, if I like in my mind, I'm like, I'm better than you, or I'm not better than you, And so I in my opinion, if me and this other quarterback were on the same college team, I'm the starter. I win.
Right.
So we get close to the game time, and he's like, "Hey, I want to start. I'm like, fine, I'll play the fourth quarter. To me, that's the better quarter to be in." Anyway, long story short, every scout that was there all week left before the game. I ended up having a pretty darn good game. I led us on a fourth quarter drive, and we won. And wasn't one scout there to see it. And anyway, fast forward to now I'm with the Arizona Cardinals, and who's their third round pick? The other quarterback. And to this day, I remember the day I got cut, and I thought I had a pretty good camp. I was so good that I was being coached by Buddy Ryan, and this was late in his career. And trust me, he was about one of the only coaches left that was still doing full pads every day. And when a defensive player hit the scout team quarterback, they didn't care.
Right.
Rob and Rex Ryan were both defensive coaches on that team. And I remember in practice, I would do pretty well, and I would throw to the guy that wasn't circled on the card. They hold up a card for the scout team and say, "Run this play."
Right.
I'm trying to make a team. I'm not going to throw an interception just because you circled this guy, because it's going to make me look like crap. So I'm out there trying to do my thing, and they would get so mad at me when I would throw to the guy on the. I'm like, but the guy running the post was wide open.
Right.
Throw to the guy. And the offensive coordinator, the scout team guy, was like, just keep doing what you're doing. And anyway, long story short, I got cut by, what was his first name? Coach Cavanaugh. I don't know if he was a Bears quarterback for Matt Cavanaugh.
Okay.
And he was great. I loved the guy. He came in and said, "Wayne, you get that knock on the door early in the morning, and it's time to come home." And I'm like, "Man," I'm telling you, not only am I better than I should have been the second string quarterback. That's how I felt. And he was very encouraging. As man, sometimes it's just a numbers game. Sometimes it's where you drafted. And long story short, and I keep saying that. None of my stories are short, so I got to stop saying that.
That's all right. I don't care.
But here's, let me backtrack a little bit. That entire camp, I had brought painkillers with me because I had arm problems. So I had these 800 milligram, ibuprofens that I would take before practice. And I was getting painkillers from the doctors too. And it was so bad that Dave Craig, who's one of my favorite people in the whole world, I don't know if you remember Dave Craig from the Seattle Seahawks.
Oh, yeah.
Quarterback played. He was probably 40 at the time.
Right.
And he would come over to me and, hey, man, your arm's killing you, isn't it? And I wasn't really letting on because I was trying to make a team. And he would actually, a 40-year-old quarterback would throw. When I was overthrown to the tight ends or the running backs on the side and he wasn't doing anything, he would come over and help me throw. I mean, I was like, I still remember that to this day as one of the coolest things from a veteran I've ever seen. But I was a mess. I would lay in bed at night and my hand would shake. It would hurt so bad. I couldn't even change the channel on the TV with my dominant hand, and I was trying to make an NFL team. So just to wrap the story up, I got cut and I get in my old pickup truck and I drove home from Flagstaff, Arizona, which is where our camp was, all the way back to Southern California. And I remember I was driving in the desert, and there was a dirt road, and I could see the Colorado River off to the right. I just turned off the dirt road and started driving. And I ended up at the river, and I'm not kidding yourself. I parked the car, I got out, I jumped in the river. It was hot, it was football season. And I got out, and I just sat on a rock for probably 2 or 3 hours. And I just kind of said, I can't do this anymore. All the injuries I talked to you about earlier, it's just caught up to me, and it wasn't worth it. And so when I got home, I got called by some arena teams. I got called to play in Europe. I got called by Canada, and I was just like, I'm done. I just football takes a toll on your body. Some people are amazing and they last longer, but for me, it was just I don't know if I was good enough or not. I don't. I can't sit here and lie about that and say I would have made it if I was healthy. I'd like to think I was, but it was just enough. I was done, and so that was kind of it for me.
Yeah, well, you talked about Canada. Of course, now they have the XFL, which only has 10 games. I don't know whether that would have met. And I'm sure I remember we go back in the days where they had the USFL. And you brought up Johnny Majors. And for those individuals that want a history lesson, all Johnny Majors did was go ahead and win a national championship at Pittsburgh. That's how good the guy is. Yes, I do follow my college football, Wayne, just so you know.
Yep.
Okay, so, yeah, and I think your adaptation to Canada would have been more difficult because of the wider field and the different rules that they play. And, of course, the XFL, of course, your man Tommy Maddox played in the rotten WWE version of it, but that'll be for another day. So
he was the MVP. You know what? Listen, I love Tommy Maddox. Tommy Maddox, we were recruited in the same class.
Oh, yeah.
And because I gray shirted, and then I redshirted, but he played as a freshman.
Yeah.
So we were 2 years apart. And then he left early to go on and be a first-round draft choice for the Denver Broncos. But Tommy had a ton of talent, that guy, and I love him. And he was a great quarterback to be around. But that XFL, when he was the MVP, I thought that was really, really cool.
Well, let me just say this, and I use the word auxiliary, Wayne, very candidly, because that you pretty much summarized. You had the Arena League, NFL Europe was going on for a long time back in the day, and of course the CFL. So you're telling me by the time any of those opportunities were potentially available, that your body had taken such a beating where you would not really be able to play professionally, and that's when you knew it was time to call it a day on the field?
For what I hope most people out there realize is that, sometimes when we see professional athletes or even college athletes, we see people around other great athletes. So we don't always grasp the concept of, you've heard this from a million people. The speed from high school to college, the difference is ridiculous. The speed from college to the pros it's just ridiculous.
Right.
It's just so if you're not at full capacity, I would like to think I was good enough, even with my injuries, to be a backup. But because I was in so much pain, who wants a backup quarterback that has a sore arm all the time? You know what I mean?
Right.
You've got to be a workhorse if you're going to be in that position. And again, what most people also don't realize is that even those backups in the NFL, they're excuse me, back when I played, even if there's 30 teams and 2 or 3 quarterbacks on each team, you've got to be one of the top 90 or even 60 quarterbacks in the world. Right. And then even if you go and play at those other leagues, I mean, those guys are still really good. We just get to watch the Tom Brady's of the world and the Aaron Rodgers of the world and guys that are so great that we think anything less means you're terrible. I mean, when people say that, Tony Romo's he wasn't any good. Yes, he was. He was incredible. Yeah, right. He didn't win Super Bowls, but I mean, compared to like most people, that guy was elite. And yet we hold people up to such a high standard. So when you're beat up and injured and fighting, through all kinds of pain on a regular basis, you're not sleeping well. And to be honest with you, at that point, does the game sound like it's fun anymore? It's really not. And so, yeah, giving it up was hard. And there was a few years where I thought, hey, do I want to try this again? But I was very lucky because I was out of the game for 4 or 5 years, and I got a call by our man, Chris Roberts. And he says, hey, Cook, he goes, this is Chris Roberts. Remember me? And I'm like, of course, Chris, broadcast or whatever. How would you like to come work for me and be on a broadcast? And I had always wanted to do that.
Right.
And I've been doing it ever since. And it's, I'm pushing 20 years in the broadcast business, and I owe it all to Chris Roberts because he thought that I was so good behind the mic as a player.
Right.
That I was a natural. And I never reached out to anybody. I didn't ask for the job. I didn't apply for the job. He just thought I'd be good at it. And thankfully, I owe a lot to that man for it because my football fix, that we're talking about, like, don't you want to do more? I love football. But now I get to talk about it all the time, so it's really cool.
Well, I want to ask you a question about the XFL. Then I want to go back to Roberts. I talked to him earlier today. Chris and I are in touch a lot anyways. But, what are your thoughts about the current XFL right now? I think that it's certainly another opportunity for guys to try to accomplish their dreams. And the fact that it is only a 10-game season versus, 18, although injuries occur anyhow. But, what are your thoughts about the current XFL? What'd you say?
You know what? For me,
yeah.
The car. I mean, sorry about this.
That's all right.
My car just stopped running. Anyway, I got distracted. I told you I was driving earlier. I stopped here for a second. And now I'm stuck. But it's okay. I'm sorry. Anyway, the XFL. I watched it the first week. And I'm not going to lie, I haven't been watching it very much since then.
Okay. That's fair.
Yeah, I mean...
That's all right. So now we'll go back to Chris Roberts, okay? And that's this. We've had a lot of UCLA people on the broadcast. Mel Farr Jr. has been on a lot. He's a regular, actually, and then Chris Roberts. And I met him through LinkedIn, and that's when I got to know him and then subsequently joined Southern California Sports Broadcasters. And, there's no question he's an iconic voice, and he's a multiple sports announcer. I believe he did baseball, basketball, as well as football. So let's talk about your broadcasting career with UCLA, how this whole conversation has come full circle with Chris Roberts.
You know what? I've been very lucky. For me to be, like I said, for the way it started with Chris Roberts and for him to think of me was, I'll be honest with you, Scott, I can't even imagine not being a broadcaster. I go through withdrawals when football season's over. I love talking about the game so much. You mentioned earlier my podcast, College Sports Now, that gives me a chance to go national. I get to talk about, I've been to the national championship game. I didn't go last year, but the previous 4 years I got to go to the national championship game as a broadcaster. I've been able to do the last 3 Rose Bowl games as a pregame show host for radio out here in LA. So I've been so lucky to be around a game I love. And again, it all started with Chris Roberts. I mean, it's, I'm a school teacher when I'm not doing broadcasting. I teach 8th grade social studies. And, and the kids laugh because every once in a while I'll do a broadcasting hit where the Pac-12 network will call, excuse me, and ask me, to do a quick 15-minute hit, and I'll tell the kids, hey, second period, I'm going to do a radio interview tomorrow. You guys can listen, and it's just so much fun, and I love to teach. I love to because again, I kind of feel like that's what we do as broadcasters. And I've been lucky to be around the game so much and be around some amazing people. And so I've learned the game really, really well. And so to be able to share that knowledge and try to explain the game to people and talk about, I'm not always right. I have a ton of opinions. And trust me, I know that there's a lot of people that disagree with those opinions, but it's still fun to talk about.
Well, as if you couldn't tell already, okay, I love broadcasting too, and I'm not very shy. They don't call me the Motor City Mild Mouth, but Motor City Mad Mouth. I mean, to me, a microphone is like giving a kid a lollipop. You can never have enough of it anyway, so it really doesn't matter. And but no, hey, listen, it's an opportunity to communicate freely with a lot of people listening in, and it's a platform, and I'm glad that you're able to have the same platform that I have, and I think it's just incredible that you're able to do that after your playing career. Do you often think at times, I know there's a lot of competition out there, that you've ever would have thought you could ever become a national broadcaster doing college sports? Have you ever been approached by those opportunities?
It's really weird, and this comes up from time to time. And
Yeah.
I'm real content with. I've even had agents like, "Come talk to me. Let's get this thing going." I do some local TV out here from time to time, and people tell me I'm a natural, and whatever. I love covering UCLA football. I've always said that if other opportunities present themselves, if the Pac-12 network ever came to me, but if I thought it was a good enough gig, and I could make the transition. The problem with me is I'm 22 years into being a school teacher,
Mm-hmm.
and the retirement as a school teacher is not bad, and so it's kind of like it'd have to be a great opportunity. I feel like I get my football fix. I coach my younger son's baseball team. I've helped with his football teams. I love being able to do that, and what I do now gives me the opportunity to do all that stuff. But I'm lucky. I mean, I travel all over. I've been to Notre Dame. I've been to Texas. I've been to Alabama. I've been to Oklahoma. I was on the field for the national championship game when Tua threw the touchdown pass against Georgia. I mean, I've been able to do both UCLA and other games. So many awesome things. So I'm not going to say I'm content, but I guess I am content. I just love what I'm doing. It's not to say that I wouldn't. Pac-12 Network has me on all the time as a guest, and if they ever gave me an opportunity to do something that I thought would be worth, changing things up, or if a national network like ESPN, but I'm a family guy, and what I'm doing now helps me be a family guy, and I love it.
Well, all I can tell you, hey, listen, I'm from the Metro Detroit area, and, I can tell you some people that I know. Jim Brandcenter is a Michigan Wolverine alumnus, and he loves covering the team. As the Dan Deerdorf, I know we could name drop all day long for as long as we want. But, hey, listen, that's the area that you live in, and that's your alma mater. I mean, life can't be bad when you're talking about your alma mater. You certainly know the history of it. And, of course, we can't leave this broadcast without mentioning that Troy Aikman, to me, certainly is a quarterback that was once upon a time a Bruin who went on to have a heck of a career with the Dallas Cowboys, needless to say.
Great broadcaster.
Right. Well, yeah, that's true. Of course, if Monday Night Football wants a recommendation, and I hope you're listening to this broadcast, Wayne Cook is available. You can't do any worse than what you got now. So, I mean, what can I tell you? So, is there anything else that you want the national audience to know about what you're doing now? I know we've talked about a lot of different things, but the floor is yours, Wayne.
Well, you know what, Scott, I appreciate it. And I think we have a lot of fun. I work with a guy by the name of Stephen Hartzell on our College Sports Now podcast. We're under the IMG Learfield umbrella. We have access to just about every college team in the nation now that those two are combined. It's such a great platform. I'm done when football season ends, but they do basketball. They do baseball. It's really good stuff. So if you want to check out College Sports Now podcast, I please do. It's really fun, and I have a great time doing it. And then also I truly believe that college football is the greatest game out there. I hope we keep it going, and I hope it stays the greatest game out there. And I'm very lucky to be a part of it. I'm very hopeful that UCLA is a team that people will be talking about. This is as low as we've been. in a long, long time, and I'm sure hoping that we get back in the spotlight where we're being talked about as a top 20 team year in and year out, because I think it's a possibility.
Well, all I can say is I'm really glad that you came on the program tonight, and I'm also proud to be a member of the Southern California Sports Broadcasters. And it wouldn't have happened without LinkedIn and connecting with Chris. And I feel in a lot of ways that I've adopted LA as my West Coast city. I really have, and I'm looking forward to doing more work, bringing on more and more people from Southern California to spend time with them. And certainly now that, as I mentioned, I have Mel Farr, who used to be junior, and of course Chris Roberts. Now you're the latest one. But it doesn't stop here. And I think when the time comes that I do get out to LA, hopefully, God willing, next January, hopefully you and I can just go out to eat and spend more time talking about stories. Of course, I look forward to inviting you back on the program anytime you want to come on. So I'm sure we'll definitely be in touch after this broadcast. In fact, I want us to be. So, this is the beginning here, and I am so grateful that I am proud to be a member of Southern California Sports Broadcasters, that I can call you and Chris Roberts and the rest of the people I got to know as friends. But this is just the beginning, and to me, what can I say? I won't say that I'm at a loss for words, because nobody would believe me anyways. But
you and me both.
Yeah, well, we put a lot of time in this show, but more importantly, it was a gift to be able to be out there. So, again, what can I tell you? I can't thank you enough for being on the program, but I'm looking forward to inviting you back again, and I'm spending more time with you when I return to Southern California, Wayne. It's been an absolute pleasure. You guys are all a class act with that organization, and I'm glad that fate enabled us to meet in early January of 2020.
Scott, I really appreciate all the kind words and letting me kind of share a little bit of my story. And as you put it out, man, we can both talk. So that's good stuff. I love it. And I look forward to seeing you next time you're out here.
Well, I look forward to spending time with you and seeing you, and we'll have even more fun now that I got the first one out of the way. I got to believe the second and third ones get easier.
Oh, geez. Yeah.
So, all right. Well, meanwhile, this concludes this edition of the Sports Exchange. We are proud to have Wayne Cook, the former UCLA quarterback and current sideline reporter. And once again, Wayne represents College Sports Now, a podcast out in Southern California. So on behalf of Wayne Cook, my name is Scott Morganroth here on the Sports Exchange, wishing everybody a great night. And I hope everybody enjoyed our time with Wayne. It's certainly been a truly special night, and bringing the East versus West here on the Sports Exchange. Hey, listen, East versus West, right? Southern. And when you talked about the fact that out in Los Angeles that there's a lot to do and they don't support, well, South Florida is the same way, although I am a Motown guy and we do support. So covered a lot of geography, both that way as well as what we talked about tonight. So good evening, everybody, from the Sports Exchange here in the South Florida Tribune Broadcasting Network. Good night, everybody.